Hey everyone, it is Josh here. I am just getting back from my 4-month-long sabbatical, and it is so great to be with you again. It sounds like you've been taken care of well. Cody last week kicked off our brand new teaching series, Into the Unknown, and I'm excited to introduce week 2. Now, if you're just joining us for the first time at North Park Youth, I'm so grateful that you're here. Again, we're getting into this brand new teaching series. We're in week 2, and we're talking about changes and how change is inevitable in our lives. So how is it that we deal with that? So we're going to get into the video for this morning, and then I'm going to come back. We're going to talk about it again briefly, and we're going to give you kind of a couple questions to think about for this week. So enjoy this week's teaching.
One step for mankind, and I don't know the rest. Hey friends, my name is Esther, and today we are talking about change. When we go through change, it's like walking into the unknown, right? We don't know what to expect. Whether good or bad, life is full of unknowns, uncertainties, and changes, right? As middle schoolers, you go through all kinds of change. I bet you're thinking about some changes right now. Changes at home, changes at school, changes with your friends, changes in your team, changes in the way you look, changes in what you believe. The list is huge. Whether going into the unknown in our lives results in good changes or not so good changes, I think we can all agree that dealing with these changes isn't always easy. When your dad gets remarried and you get a really great, cool stepmom, that's good, right? But still means that you have to adjust to a new person in the house. And that can be a difficult part of change. Or when you get moved to the starting lineup on your team. That's amazing, right? But it still means that you have to handle all the pressures of leading the team. And that can be a scary part of change. When you move to a cool new house, in a cool new neighborhood, that can be fun, right? But it still means getting to know new people at a new school, in a new place, and that can be the hard part of change. Those are just the positive changes. I mean, if changes like that can be difficult to deal with, what about the kinds of changes that aren't so good? What about the ones that we don't want? The kind that leaves us wishing everything could go back the way it was before. Maybe for you, it was a breakup with your boyfriend or girlfriend. No matter how much you wanted to get back together, you knew it just wasn't going to happen. Or maybe your parents separated and you hoped that they would work it out and fix their relationship, but instead they ended up getting divorced. Maybe you were the captain of the baseball team last season, but this season your coach picked someone else. Or maybe you used to be the star in the drama club, but this year someone else took the lead role. You can't change the fact you moved to a new school. You can't change the fact that you were moved to a different math class. You can't change the fact that your best friend chose a new group. You can't change the fact that your friends rejected or disappointed you. You can't change the fact that you failed that test. You can't fix the changes that make your life feel a little bit broken right now. When something changes in a way that we don't want it to, it feels like something has fallen apart in our lives, doesn't it? And I don't know about you, but when that happens, what I try to do is fix it. I find myself thinking, I just want things to go back to the way they were. But what I've learned is that a lot of times, that is impossible. Sometimes going into the unknown means that whatever it is that feels broken simply can't be fixed. And that can leave us feeling sad, angry, frustrated, even helpless. When you're going through changes like that, sometimes it feels like nothing else can be done. Maybe you've even wondered why God hasn't done something about it. And honestly, now you feel frustrated and disappointed, both with a change that's so permanent in your life and with God who seems to be doing nothing to help you through it. If you ever felt like that, just know that you are not the only one. Almost every person who has ever experienced difficult or painful change in their lives has thought the same things. That's why it's important for us to know that while God hasn't promised you to change everything to be the way we want, God has promised us something else. And I think it's something that can help us when we go through the unknowns in our lives. A long time ago, there was a group of people who experienced a lot of changes in their lifetime. They were known as the Israelites, and what they lived through thousands of years ago actually plays a major role in our faith today. Starting with a man named Abraham, God created a nation or a group of people of Israel in an area of the world that we now call the Middle East. It was out of that group of people that God would one day send Jesus into the world. So, the nation of Israel was really a big deal to God. They were a part of God's plan to free and save the whole world through Jesus. But also along the way, the Israelites went through a lot of struggles and unknowns and changes. They made a lot of mistakes and missteps that got them into all kinds of trouble. Other nations will come and take over them and even capture them. I mean, this happened over and over and over again. You think that because they were God's chosen people, they had it all figured out, that they wouldn't keep making choices that got them into trouble, that they would know how to deal with changes and unknowns that they experienced in their journey. But remember, these people were just that. People. And like us, they were people who didn't always handle change well. So, what did they do? Well, every time they found themselves in trouble, they did what a lot of us would do. They asked God to fix it, to change it, to make things go back to the way they were. Sometimes God did, sometimes God didn't. But no matter what God did with the changes that the nation of Israel was dealing with, God always promised them something they could hold on to as they walk through the unknown. And it's the same thing God promised us today. Take a look. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Okay, so first of all, I think that we've got to pay attention to the way that this was worded. When you pass through the waters, when you pass through the rivers, when you walk through the fire. It's not if, but when. In other words, this stuff is going to happen. Things are going to change. We are going to experience the unknown. We are going to find ourselves in difficult circumstances. That's a guarantee. But what's also a guarantee is what God promised us when that happens. God promised us to be with us through it. And because of that promise, we can be confident when everything changes. Now, I don't know if that's the type of promise you were hoping for. Honestly, sometimes I wish God would have said something else too. Maybe something like, no matter how hurt you are, or no matter how bad your situation is, I am going to fix it. I'm gonna make things go back the way they were, and it will all be great. I'm going to make change easy for you by only making it the easy kind. But that's not what God said. And that makes me think maybe God knows something we don't. Maybe God knows that more than anything, we need to trust that when we go into the unknowns in our lives, God is with us. Think about it as this astronaut, you know? When they're going into the unknown of space, they just don't float around on their own. No, they're literally tethered. Where's the tether? There you go. They're literally tethered to their spaceship. They have this cord that connects their suit to the safety of their ship, and it keeps them near the other astronauts on their mission. No matter how scary outer space might get or how far off they drift, the astronaut can trust that they're never alone. And the same is true when we go into the unknown in our lives. When change happens, and it always will, God, who never changes, is with us. We may not have a literal cord that connects us to God like an astronaut does to their ship, but we can trust that God is always near. God never leaves us, and that includes when we're experiencing all kinds of change. That's what I want you to remember today. God goes with you into the unknown. No matter what you're going through or what's happening at home, no matter how hurt you feel over what your friends did to you, or how sad you are because life will never go back to the way it was, God goes with you into those unknowns. And if you think about it, that really is an amazing promise. Because when I was hurting from the changes life has brought me, the last thing I want to feel is alone. I want to know someone is going through it with me. Sometimes just knowing someone is there for us can make us feel a lot better. And when that someone is God, who is bigger than anything that's happening around us, well, that's just pretty cool. I think that God's presence with us is the answer that we really need. When God finally fulfilled the promise to send Jesus into the world through the nation of Israel, one of Jesus' names was Emmanuel. That means God with us. It was a name that would remind us that God is with us always. Jesus' life on earth was direct proof that God is with us all the time. While on earth, Jesus said something similar to God's promise in Isaiah. Check this out. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Jesus didn't shy away from the fact that we'll face troubling changes. In fact, he guaranteed we had to go into the unknown throughout our entire lives. But he told us to take heart, which means have courage and remain strong, because he had overcome the world. And when we believe in and know Jesus, we can trust that he's got it covered. Knowing Jesus changes everything. See, there is no change God can't handle. There are no unknowns we walk through without God by our side. God has made the promise to be with us and never leave us. And because of that, we can be confident when everything changes, knowing that the God of the universe hasn't left us to face it alone. Because God goes with you into the unknown. So what do we do? Since change is going to happen whether we want it or not, how can we do what Jesus said to do? How can we take heart and know that God is with us? I think it means making some decisions. First, we have to make a decision to trust God in the middle of the unknown. We have to trust that God is with us through the uncertainty of change. We have to choose to believe that's true over and over and over again. Maybe for you, that means saying it out loud when you're struggling through change. God is with me. Maybe it's writing it down or asking a friend to remind you of it. Or it means memorizing one of the verses we read today to help you when you need it. Whatever this looks like for you, make a choice to believe and remember that God goes with you into the unknown. Second, act like God is with you. God's very spirit lives inside of you. God couldn't be any closer. You can talk to God anytime, all the time, about anything. You can tell God what's worrying you and ask for help. If you're having a hard time remembering God is with you, try to remind yourself that God's there and that you are not alone. Make the decision to act like God is with you while you're into the unknown and deal with the uncertainty of change. And finally, change how you respond to change. We can't always control the things that are happening to us. We can't control or stop or change what comes our way, but we can control is how we respond to them. Instead of shutting down, we can choose to open up to a friend or even your small group leader. Instead of acting out in anger, we can choose to pause, take a breath, and go for a walk, or say a quick prayer. Instead of giving up when we face the unknown, we can choose to believe there is more to come in our story. We can choose to believe that God goes with us into the unknown. And not only that, there are people here at church who want to be with you through change. Your group is here to support you, encourage you, and stay with you through all of the unknowns. In the good and the bad, there are a group of friends who can help you walk through change and remember that God is with you. Are you there?
And welcome back. So I hope that you enjoyed this morning's teaching. Again, we know that there are good changes and there are bad changes, but it is so good to know that we serve a God who goes with us into the unknown. So for your question this morning to kind of think about throughout the day, maybe to talk about with your family, I want you to think about maybe an area in your life that is changing right now. We all have those different areas. We're getting ready to kind of go into the fall. I mean, things are just constantly changing and constantly unknown in our lives. So think about, again, that maybe that one area that's changing, and think about how that area could look if you trusted God to be with you in the midst of that change. I know in my life there have been so many moments where when I've been able to trust God in the unknown moments and in the moments of change, it has gone way better than if I were to do it on my own. I promise you that. So again, it's been so great to be with you this morning. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you again next week.